Hi, Heinz. How to fight sword and dagger the Wistric way, or, as is also the Wistric way, why everything everybody has ever told you is wrong, probably including stuff I've told you too. This is derived from my readings of Gigante and Fabris, and to a lesser extent Capifero. So, how to fight sword and dagger. First of all, what are the three fundamentals of combat? Measure, tempo, line. Let's start with tempo. You hopefully know by now, you may remember, that different body parts take longer to move. You might have realized this somewhere along the line in your life. Tempo is the duration of an action. Different actions take longer than others. The idea is to take fewer, smaller tempi. So, a tempo of the hand, locovacion, is very small, right? Beat, a little bit larger, because it engages some of the forearm muscles more. Cuts, big parries, they take longer. Tempo of the feet, largest. So that's the scale. Basically, as it comes up from the ground, goes out to the sword, tempi gets smaller. This is important. We'll remember it. Measure. Don't be inside measure until you have to be. Don't be inside measure don't be at measure without having gained their sword. If you haven't heard that term or you don't remember that term, Gigante says you gain their blade by laying your sword across the top of theirs like this. Now, when he extends, my sword here, my sword dummy extends, that point is going to go to my guard, making it real easy for me to strike. That also makes it very easy to know what he has to do next, right? I've gained his blade, he has to disengage, I can counterfind when he does, and hit. Therefore, I know what tempo he's going to take, I know how to counter it. I am taking fewer smaller tempi, I'm going to win. That's placing your opponent in obedience, dictating what they have to do next, and having a counter in place that will lead to your victory. Obedience is a much more complicated concept, but that's that. So, tempi, feet big, body slightly smaller, shoulders a little bit smaller, elbows a little bit smaller, wrist tiny. Third thing is line. Line is, and different masters say different things, but Master Wistric says line. Line is, where are you open and where are you not open, right? If I gain his blade, I have closed the line. If he attacks, he goes to my guard, I am now safe. He has to disengage to an open line. If I control that line, I also win. So, with sword and dagger, we're going to focus on lines. Because what these do is control lines really well. So, measure, tempo, line. Measure we're not going to talk about a whole lot. It's basically stay out of measure until you're confident that you are safe and ready to execute a plan. Gain their blade or offer an invitation, a trap, as you come to measure and execute your plan once they're in obedience. Back to tempo. Standard SCA fencing is, if they attack, you parry with your dagger or you parry with your sword. You use these tempo of the hands, the smallest tempo you have, the smallest tempi you have, as your first line of defense. That's absolutely stupid and wrong. Because that's the smallest tempo you have. If your opponent does something you're not expecting, you don't have a smaller tempo to counter it with. You have to take a larger tempo. If I'm trying to parry his sword and he disengages, I have to make this huge action here to block. Maybe I'm going to succeed, but he might just do another little disengage and hit me in the face. I'm boned. So I want to use larger tempi for my defense. The largest is footwork. Again, if I'm not happy, I take a retreat. If I want to be a little bit fancy, I take a step offline. Those are easier to read, and in the tempo of an attack, it's a little tricky to pull off because The tempo he is taking is a tempo of the foot, that lunge, right? Tempo of the foot. So I need a smaller tempo than a tempo of the foot to counter his tempo of the foot in his attack. What's my next smallest tempo? My body, my torso. And that's why I asked how flexible your torso is. If this sword is coming at me, my best defense is to not be there. We talk about retreating, sidesteps, but I don't have those two options, again, because countering a tempo of the foot with the tempo of the foot comes out to a wash. So what do? Get the hell out of the way. Or this way. The basic plan is touch the floor on the inside. Try to touch the floor on the outside. You probably, you can't. But that's the idea. Move your body as your first line of defense. Then, when he does something you're not expecting, you still have the tempi of your arms, your elbows, your wrists to counter it, right? If he does something I'm not expecting from here, well, I can parry. And then if he tries to disengage, I've got a little, counter parry as I come back in. So, that's tempo. Counter his large tempo with the next smallest tempo. Save the smallest tempi in your arsenal as your last line of defense. Don't use them as your first line of defense because, again, this is stupid. Or you don't want to waste these if he counters it with anything, you're going to be screwed. So line, already kind of talked about that, right? If he's coming at me, if I'm open here, I move my body offline. Now I am not open, right? Because I have changed the line. I don't have to do anything to his sword to get that target area out of the way, to get that opening out of the way and shut him out. So I control line that way. Next, and here's where everybody is wrong again. You've been told not to cross the streams fighting sword and dagger. I know you've been told not to cross the streams because I think I probably told you that. I was wrong. You start off with the streams crossed. You start off with your weapons joined, touching each other. Now, like this, I'm really squared up. I'm going to have some big openings. I don't really want that. But your weapon goes from the point all the way up to the shoulder. So, get back like this. Now join your weapons. I lay my dagger on my forearm. If I'm feeling really fancy, I'll reach forward like this. Or if I'm engaged on the outside or setting up a trap on the inside, I will come forward like this so that they're, blade on blade. But for standard guard, bien terza, dagger goes on forearm. Touch. And I will explain why in just a second. Now your weapons are joined. Why do you do that? You are crossing the streams. This is everything you're not supposed to do. Remember when you're fighting sword and dagger and they throw a shot, if you do this, you're fucked, right? So you don't want to be fucked. But you start off that way. If you're fighting single sword, you have one weapon and two lines. Inside, outside, right? One weapon, two lines. So you pick up a dagger. Now you have two weapons and you have three lines. Outside the dagger, right up the middle, right? 2 to 3, better than 1 to 2. But if I join my weapons, there is no longer an inside line. I have outside the dagger, I have outside the sword. I have one weapon for each line. Now, anything you throw at me, I have something there to stop it. There is no disengage around my weapons, because if you disengage from that outside line, you then go to my sword side and I block that. And if you are on the outside line, outside sword line, and you disengage to the outside dagger line, I can block that too. What next? Okay, so that's join the weapons, shut down that inside line to start with. Why you touch? Because I can throw a lunge that goes scraping along your sword, and if you leave any gap, this small of a gap, I will come up that sword, I will go right through this spot here, and I will hit you in the shoulder or the face. In his translation of Gigante, Leone describes this as Scanatura, but apparently that's not really what Scanatura means based on his translation of Capaferro, which makes me sad because it's an awesome concept. You come in parallel to the weapon as close as possible, and the parry is blocked by the weapon. Because again, you started off with the line, the stream's not crossed. Don't cross the streams, right? You started off this way. And when you go for that parry, you slam into your own weapon. It's going to be hard to demonstrate this. But if I'm parrying this sword that's coming in, and I go to block, it keeps coming in until it hits. So, start off with the streams crossed, no issue. No inside line that they can exploit. Like I said, if you're squared up, if your blades are crossing too far forward, you're going to be squared up. You're going to be more open. So you get your left shoulder back, just like you're fighting single sword, but now with the dagger. Touch the dagger to the forearm. If you want to be fancy, if you want to be devious, you touch the dagger to the shoulder. But touch the dagger to the forearm. And you keep that left shoulder back. Keeping that left shoulder back is where your particular form, was flawed the last time I saw you fight, because you bring that left foot forward, which squares your hips up towards your enemy, which forces your shoulders square. Get that left foot, take it to 90 degrees, and then take it further out. Keep your knees lined up with your feet, because otherwise, the feet are the shorthand for the knees. Keep your knees more than 90 degrees apart. Your thighs, keep that angle between them greater than 90 degrees. Now my hips are facing this way. My codpiece is facing the audience. And now that left shoulder is going to stay back. So I've minimized my target area. And if they throw to the outside line, now I just touch the floor on the inside. So that blade coming over here, my body's out of the way, everything is shut out. If he disengages, here's my dagger. It stops that disengage completely. I have this nice big wall. He's not getting around. And then I go forward. And I kill. I stab him with the sword. I stab him with the dagger. I punch him with the kins. Do whatever the hell I feel like. On the inside line, that trick's going to be a little iffier. So we've been joining our weapons. Been joining our dagger blade, our dagger point to the weapon. Either up here, which remember is bad because it brings that left shoulder forward and it kind of inclines one to do this. Or, back on the forearm, maybe back on the shoulder. You can also shut down that inside line with your hands joined. And this is where you get to the classic plates of sword and dagger parries. Here, here, here. What they don't show, but what they start off with, is those weapons are joined until the parry is really well made. So, if this attack is coming on the inside line, I roll my sword to quarta, just like I'm fighting a single sword. Just as I did out here on the outside line, rolled my sword to second. I extend my hands together. You see this transition as I come forward. Now I've got that wall. I pick up that sword as I go forward. And now you've got that classic parry position where there is a gap, but there isn't all the way until you get to that point. The action, the way to think of this is a hadouken, right? I'm here, I hadouken. And then I've got that guard. I've got that perfect guard. You can do the same thing on the outside line, hadouken, right? Adding back in that body rotation though, the way this has been going, there's been a lot of hand action. But if we add back in that body rotation, especially on the outside line, if I'm in terza and I bend my body 90 degrees to the inside, my sword is now in secunda, and I haven't moved my hands at all. I haven't used any of those muscles. They are still there to go, right? They're still there to do my parries. I've just defended with my body. It's a little harder on the inside, but it's still, as you lean, you come to quarta, and you just snap your dagger up. All right? So you're going to keep your quarter low. right? You can do a high quarter. You can high quarter into it. That's a little trickier. You see that's sort of goofy. On the inside, just keep your quarter low. Bam, here. Outside, there. Or if you want to keep your sword low in second, there, that hadouken action. So, join weapons from the start. So there are only 2 lines, 1 weapon for each line. Counter large tempi with the next smallest tempo. Keep the smallest tempi in your arsenal for emergencies only. Keep your left shoulder back, which means keep your left knee and your left foot pointing away from your opponent. Front foot always points at your opponent, of course. Use your body. Touch the ground. Go this way. The other thing you haven't been taught, probably haven't been told, the only difference between offense and defense is who's closing measure. So I've been discussing this defensively, right? He comes at me, oh, I parry. He comes at me on the outside line, I block with my nice wall and I stab him in the face. This also is how you lunge. Lunge. On the outside line. Lunge. Okay. Only difference between offense and defense is who's closing measure. So you think about voids then. Been doing voids as kind of a defensive action, but also now adding them into our offense. And you think about the classic void, the volta, right? If it can be used defensively, it can be used offensively. So, this is really how I end up getting my body way the hell out of the way. When I lunge, I follow through with a volta at the end. I am now super safe. That sword is 2 feet, 3 feet away from me. I'm gonna win. I do win with that shot all the damn time. Same thing. Inside line, outside line, you lunge, then you can do what are really the voids on the outside line, which are passing steps. And here you come forward and stab them. If you get the Fabris book, there's a guard in there, which is this, all right? It looks insane and stupid. It is the complete embodiment of what I've just been talking about. My weapons are joined. There's, in fact, only 2 open lines, and it's not the one between them. If he goes for my face, I step back, and Fabris does suggest stepping back because you are trying to gain some measure while he closes with his tempo of the foot, and I rotate my body, and now I'm here. If he goes for the face to the right of the nose, if he goes for the face to the left of the nose, here. Really, the only lines he has are actually still outside my weapons, and there's nothing outside those weapons. The whole point of that guard is the epitome of this idea of the hierarchy of tempi for defense and joining your weapons to minimize lines. Good luck. Let me know what people tell you, how they tell you I'm wrong. But cross the damn streams to start off. Keep your body not square. Hadouken. What was the other thing I told you that? Oh yeah, and don't really use your tempo of the hand. Don't use your tempo of the wrist for defense or offense. It's a waste. Good luck, man.